Today on Adversity Strength, I'm joined by Amrita Sen Mukherjee. Dr. Amrita is a medical doctor, TEDx speaker, and leadership expert who works at the intersection of medicine, well-being, and performance. With decades of experience supporting high-performing professionals, she explores how adversity, challenge, change can become a catalyst for growth rather than breakdown. In this conversation, we talk about post-traumatic growth, psychological safety, compassionate leadership, and what it really means to thrive under pressure, as well as medical conditions and working at home, at work, and in life. This is a thoughtful human conversation about resilience, meaning, and learning to grow through what we go through. Thanks ever so much for coming on the podcast today. It's great to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Lee. I'm really excited about being here.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's been eventful for you. You've been through so much professionally as well as personally. Take us back to the beginning. Where did your journey begin with all of this?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Lee. And quite often when I'm asked this, I can't really pinpoint a specific moment or a specific time. It was more like a gradual change in the way I was seen by people and change in the way I saw myself owing to kind of particular circumstances, which I'll explain more
Yeah.
about. But if you're asking me kind of when this started, I won't be able to answer that apart from say that there's a huge distinction between me today and me,
Yeah.
say, 10 years ago. But whereabouts that change happened exactly, I'm not entirely sure, which is why I think there's so much beauty in challenge and in growth, because actually it can happen quite suddenly, but in other terms, it can happen quite gradually in a way that we don't even notice until
Yeah.
we suddenly stop, take stock, and review and reflect on kind of things that have happened. I think that's more my journey, kind of that opportunity to stop and pause and think, oh, right, okay, things are quite different now.
Yeah. And you can find with things that are going on like a daily basis there that suddenly you just get caught up in that. And you've gone from something at the beginning and you didn't realize how did I get to this point there and my life's changed or whatever
Yeah.
there. Tell us a little bit about what started off with yourself. Because from what you said before, everything was going great for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was incredibly lucky, very fortunate um, in in several aspects of my life, and I recognized that it was after starting a family that things started to change a little bit for me, and I started to become quite unwell actually, physically. What started off as general, oh, I've just had a baby, my body's changed, things are a little bit hard, oh, sleepless nights, consecutively. You're not going to feel too great after, experiencing those. I recognized that there was something actually more happening. And as a doctor, I was quite used to doing night shifts. So I was quite used to being sleep deprived, working odd hours, doing 15, 16-hour days, sometimes 13 days in a row. And so I was quite used to kind of my body being pushed to significant, limits. But this was really different. And actually, what I recognized was I wasn't actually very well. There were symptoms that I was experiencing that made me think, these aren't going away. And there seems to be a bit more to this than what you can just talk away or what you can just rationalize away. And I think being a doctor, I was able to articulate those symptoms a bit better than somebody who might not have necessarily had language to put to that, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
was in a really beautiful, unique spot where I had this kind of insider outsider perspective
Yeah.
where I understood the theory and the academics of particular illnesses and what was happening to me. But at the same time, I had the insider version of I've read about this and I've spoken to patients about this, but this is what it feels like. And that gives a really, really different perspective on what's happening to you. That's really grounding and really humbling, actually, because you go from being somebody who wants to help people and look after them to being somebody who still wants to do all those things, but needs to ask for help as well. And I hadn't been in a position before where I had to ask for help or where I
Yeah.
had to ask for somebody to support me and what I was going through. One, to find an answer as what was happening, but two, also to support me emotionally and psychologically, because there were obviously huge changes happening personally and professionally. And that I found very, very hard, actually, Lee. Going from somebody where people ask you for your help, um, to having to ask somebody else for your help, and that was a very challenging point.
Yeah. What did you find that challenging? You're a professional, you're highly educated, or you spend all your time helping people, you see people asking for help, but when it comes to you, why did you find that so difficult?
Yeah, I think because I'd never been in that position before, actually.
Yeah.
I think, like I was saying at the beginning of our conversation, I'd been quite fortunate, in my journey to that point. I'd been in a situation where, yes, I'd suffered a bereavement. My father passed away when I was in my early 20s, but I hadn't been in a position where I had to say to somebody, I'm in need of support, I'm in need of help right now, and in a position of vulnerability. And I think it was showing that vulnerability, showing that position of not being able to do for myself like I can do for others was a very, very interesting place to be. And I had to overcome my own boundaries around that, I would say.
Did you
Um,
manage that? Because you have to accept, I need help. I can't do this on my own. And now I've got to overcome this and ask for help.
Yeah, I think I was quite quick to initially ask for help, but the problem was, Lee, at that point was denied that help. I was told that I was not coping. I was told that I was, that there was certain language used towards me, that I was fictitious or playing it up or not strong enough. And I think when people are telling you things like this, who are professionals and your colleagues and people who you've asked for help from, actually you start believing it yourself. Because if people are telling you, people who are educated, experienced, are saying these things to you, you think, well, actually, gosh, maybe you are right. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I'm not skilled enough. Maybe I am not coping. Maybe
Mm.
this is a chink in my armor, as it were, and maybe I need to fortify myself. So to be honest, that was a position that I started to reflect upon, and I was quite critical with myself that actually, what am I doing? Why am I asking for help? I don't need help. I'm just being a baby, to be honest, is almost, the narrative that was spun to me. And I rather foolishly believed it. I
It-
rather foolishly took other people's experiences and judgments as
Yeah.
my own, rather than having the opportunity to really dig deep and ground myself and say, no, you've got this, and you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about. And I think this is where the external voice was amplified instead of my internal locus of control.
Yeah. If you go back to the beginning, you were saying obviously you've not long given birth and you started to struggle. Can you tell us some of the signs that you were starting
Yeah,
to feel?
of course. Yeah. I think it was just feeling different. I just knew that there was something very different about how I was feeling. I was very fatigued. I recognized that I wasn't able to do all the things that other mums were doing. I would do all the normal things like go to baby groups, music classes with my young one, just go for walks in the park, put the baby down for a nap and then go for a walk in the park. And at the same time, you'd see, the same people in the park or people having the same kind of routine. And I just noticed that I wasn't able to do the things that people were doing. My body just wasn't working in the same way. And I couldn't understand why. I couldn't understand why I was so tired. I couldn't understand why walking a 5-minute walk took me 45 minutes. I couldn't understand why, packing a baby bag would suddenly make me feel like I'd run a marathon. All these things that if you are well, you take for granted. And it was when those things were happening that I realized actually this isn't, and they weren't subsiding. That's when you realize, okay, there must be something else going on here. And I think the most important part of this story around kind of being a new mother, being somebody who is unwell and being somebody who is not able to get the help that they need. The biggest criticism, it's not a criticism, the biggest challenge that I faced was not believing in myself enough,
Yeah.
criticizing myself.
I mean, how many weeks or months into you feeling unwell was it before you realized something's really not right here and I'm going to have to do something about it?
Yeah, I think around 6 months.
Around 6, it's still a long time.
It's a long time, but equally, as a doctor, I was coming from the theoretical perspective of I've just carried a baby for 9 months. My body's gone through significant changes. So I was kind of I was erring on the side of caution, if you see what I
Yeah.
mean. And like I said before, I was rationalizing things away. Everything had an explanation. Oh, I've had sleepless nights. Or, my husband's been busy working. This has happened. Like you can easily
Yeah.
rationalize things away because let's face it, for anyone who's had a child, you realize that life is not, you don't get into any routine. You don't get into any kind of
No.
rhythm. And so you can put things down to anything
Yeah.
really. But it was after 6 months that I recognized there is some difference in me. I was able to kind of stock take and think, hang on a second. Yes, of course there's differences. I'm a mother. I wasn't a mother before, but there's something fundamentally different about how I feel in my body. There's something fundamentally different about how I'm able to complete tasks, complete very, very simple everyday tasks. And I think that was where the real turning point for me was, where I recognized actually I need to do something about that.
It really surprises me that you go to, I mean, you know yourself if you're not right, and there's only so many ways times you can justify. Eventually, if you can't pack a bag and it's exhausting for you, you're going to come to the conclusion there's a problem. So for you, kind of all people, to go to see, I don't know what, the GP to start with, and then to kind of almost dismiss you, the fact that you're a professional, you would think would hold more weight.
Yeah. Well, I was told that I need to just dig deep and
You've been doing that for 6 months,
grow up. Yeah,
and grow up.
yeah, yeah. It was the yeah. So it was interesting because like I said, the language that was used towards me was quite inflammatory. And it really, and again, I think, like I said, I was exposing my vulnerability and I was asking
Yeah.
for help. And when I was faced with such negative responses, it made me think, gosh, there must be something wrong with me because, as in, there must be something wrong with my coping mechanisms because if this learned person is saying this to me, then they must be right.
Why that type of language towards you, though?
I think the problem is that the profession that I come from is incredibly demanding and it's incredibly challenging in many ways. And I think maybe it was considered that I needed to, be tougher because I had faced tough things in my profession, that what I was experiencing at home couldn't be as tough as that maybe. I don't know. I really don't have the answer to that, Lee, because
Yeah.
it's not the way I am and it's not the way I think and it's not the way I have ever thought. So I'm not entirely sure and I can't really answer for
You,
those
obviously,
responses. But what I can say
yeah.
is that it was incredibly damaging to my journey and my recovery.
I can imagine, because obviously I'm not a medical expert, but surely if you got anybody that's any lady that's just given birth and they're coming to a doctor or whoever after 6 months of struggling, let alone a doctor, a professional saying, I'm really struggling here. And I think it's a lot more, you would think they would take it more seriously, because it's not like, well, I've had a bad week. This is 6 months and nothing's improving. So you would kind of assume surely somebody would look into it. It's almost like they didn't have time to listen to
Yeah,
you.
like I said, I don't know the answer
Mm.
to those questions, but what I do know is that these experiences have shaped who I am today, and these
Yeah,
experiences have offered me the opportunity to try and change the narrative, to
yeah,
try and um, support doctors who are going through challenges with their health, who are going through challenges following childbirth, who are going through challenges with professional identity. And yes, my work started off with doctors because I am a doctor, but my work has moved into other spheres and other professional bodies. And I think it was these experiences that I had and these challenges that I have that have defined who I am today. I work in a very in in a very open space. And what I mean by that is I try not to I try and challenge my unconscious biases. I'm quite aware that we all have them. And I try and work in a way that I have positive regard for everybody. I don't make assumptions. I challenge my biases. And it puts me at a point where I feel like I'm able to give people that neutrality that I maybe wasn't offered at a vulnerable point.
Yeah.
And by sharing that knowledge and by spreading that positivity, it allows people to recognize where we can all help and where we can all be part of somebody's journey of recovery, whatever that might be, or journey of healing, should we say, not recovery, journey of healing and journey of
Yeah.
growth. And because we all have the power to be pillars of support for people, regardless of how small that part is, just by a kind word, just by offering a listening ear, just by being somebody who offers compassion and care, somebody who holds the door open for someone when they see someone struggling. All of these really small acts of kindness are the seeds of growth and are the seeds of supporting somebody, as I said, through their journey of healing. And that's what I really want to share today, in the sense that I wasn't listened to. There's no denying that. It was very challenging, especially speaking to people who were my kin, who are my tribe, who are my professional
Yeah.
background. And that gave me a sense of unbelonging. When
Yeah.
you're not seen and understood and viewed as one of a team, as one of a tribe, of people who you have spent time with, studying with, it is incredibly damaging to your identity, to your self-belief, but also um to 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 your growth. And I was just trying to find the right word there.
In your confidence as
Yeah,
well.
huge confidence, self-esteem, everything disintegrated. And it came from a point of that I rebuilt myself. And I said,
Yeah.
well, I don't want anyone to go through what I did. And that's the focus of the work I do today.
So, I mean, we'll definitely come back to that, and because I really want to hear exactly what you're doing, the difference that you've made. But when you go back to when you're in the middle of this, you've not even been diagnosed yet. So what happened then? You went to your GP, and then was it like seeing a specialist?
Yeah, I mean, I did all the things that normal people, that would
Yeah.
normally happen. So, I did all the things that one would do. You go to see your GP, you go to see a specialist, and then you move forward. What I have to recognize as well in this was that I was also having to go to work. And so, after maternity leave was over, it was time to go back to work. And that was important to me, because it was important to me to, I was fit to work. I was in a place where I could work. Um, and it was important to me to try and salvage some of my identity around that.
And how long after you had seen several professionals and they were told you to kind of almost just get on with it, that you actually went back and managed to get a diagnosis?
Yeah, so it's 4.5 years. Um,
4.5 years, and then 4.5 years later, finally.
yeah, it was quite a long time. And I think what's important to remember is that life is busy, and especially when you have a young family to look after, and you've had, a year of maternity leave and you go back to work. And so time can pass very, very quickly. And it wasn't a case of me knocking on doors for the 4.5 years, because that isn't how life is, or that
Yeah.
wasn't how life was for me, knocking on a door. And so, did take 4.5 years. It was a long time. However, during that 4.5 years, I learned a lot about myself. During those 4.5 years, I learned a lot about how to manage conversations, actually, how to navigate conversations, and how to build up my strength and self-esteem and say, please listen to me now, because I have something that you need to hear. And I think that was the key point, that if that 4.5 years hadn't have happened, it shouldn't have happened that way. Let's not deny that. Um, it shouldn't have happened that way. It should have been that after 6 months, things
Yeah.
worked in my favor. It didn't. But what's important to remember is that during those 4.5 years, what happened was I was able to learn more about myself, understand my resilience, recognize how strong I really was, and understand that I had a very, very beautiful support system around me. And the challenges and the darkness that I was facing,
Yeah.
allowed me to see the light. It allowed me to see the beauty that I had in my life. It allowed me to recognize the strength of my family unit, the bonds that I had with people, my friendships, and my resolve. And I think that was hugely important, which allowed me to get to that point of 4.5 years and say, I need someone to listen now, and I'm not
Yeah.
leaving until you do.
Tell me about that then. Tell me when you finally were diagnosed, what happened there, and how, and if you felt relieved or whatever it was.
Oh, it's incredibly liberating. It was incredibly liberating. To be told that I was right, to be
Yeah,
told that I had been suffering, to have my suffering acknowledged, to have my experiences validated,
yeah,
and to have me as a human being believed. All of those things were incredibly powerful and caused a huge shift in me because, I finally felt like I belonged. I finally felt like I had allyship. I finally felt like I was validated. I finally felt like people believed me and didn't view me as a liar. I finally felt like, okay, I'm on the road to healing. I'm on the road to recovery. I'm on the road to um something different, something new, something that isn't going to be so tiring and fatiguing. Just it was a real light bulb moment, not in the sense of my ideas coming to life, but a light bulb moment in the sense of now I'm seen. The lights are on and now I'm seen for who I am. And like I said, that was
yeah, yeah,
incredibly powerful and incredibly liberating. And moving forward from there, I recognize, yes, there's a long road ahead of me, but I'm on the road now. Before I was
yeah,
kind of going down dead end tracks, like almost going down a road and it being a cul-de-sac. So kind
yeah.
of going down, having to turn around and come back again, being at the same point, going down another road, turning around, coming back again, traveling, moving forward, but not getting very far.
Yeah, no, because all you've been trying to do is trying to deal with it and move on, and you're getting blocked there as well. Um,
Yeah. So
did you?
that was incredibly powerful to see that there was a road without any blockades.
Yeah, of course. For once, there's like a light at the end of the tunnel. Did you all of those emotions and feelings when you actually got? We'll obviously come to that in a moment. Did you feel all of those feelings like a weight lifted? Emotions, or was it actually over time that you thought, actually, you know what, I was right, I don't have to doubt myself, my confidence, myself? Was it all at one go, or did you find it was over a period of time that all come back to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Lee. I think initially it was, I'm feeling so many things that I can't articulate them.
Yeah.
It was a sense of overall joy, actually, overall elation, but why I felt that wasn't clear. So the feeling was there and the emotion was there, but the understanding behind the emotion took a lot of time to unpack.
Do you think?
Because, yes, that's great. We know what's wrong. We know what's happening. We know we can, when you have a problem and you name the problem, you can find a solution.
Yeah,
And so, yes, there was all of that that went with it.
yeah,
But there was also, for all the positives, there's always some negatives that come alongside as well. And so, yes, all of these things I've had to unpack, all of these things have changed my identity, professional and personal. All of these things have changed the relationships I have for the better. But still, when change occurs, you have to honor that change. And so all of these things have happened very, very gradually. So it's been a journey, but it's also been incredibly fulfilling. But what I would say is that, this has been a journey of nearly 1.5 decades. What's important is grit, determination, and making sure that you stick with things because nothing in life or nothing in my life has ever happened very quickly or rapidly. So making sure that you're honoring that and
yeah.
making sure that you recognize that and not being hard on yourself during that journey is really important.
Yeah, I imagine that changed for you, because I can imagine you after you were almost dismissed when you were trying to explain how you felt, that you probably become hard on yourself, go,
Yeah.
well, maybe I should be getting on with it. And then you look back going, well, I was right all the time and I shouldn't have been hard on myself. And now you're probably more compassionate.
100%. But I think that being hard on myself was something that I was always hard on myself, I think. I think that was a behavior pattern for myself that I needed to unpack and kind of really understand why that was happening. And that, yes, you might say, well, if you know something, why did you believe what other people were saying to you? Just because they said it doesn't mean you have to believe it. But I suppose because I had previously been quite hard on myself, when people were telling me to kind of pull your socks up, I was like, oh yeah, okay, fine. Because that was
Yes, what you,
that was what I was used to and that was my behavior pattern. And, I came from a background where I was one of very few brown girls in my school, not in my class, in my school. And so you develop particular behavior patterns that you're so, I didn't even realize this when I was younger. You have to work hard. You have to, be competent. You have to be recognized for what you are. Otherwise you might get dismissed, if you see what I mean. And so I'd always been working hard. I'd always been doing what I felt um would would get me to where I wanted to go. I wanted to be a doctor, so I had to work hard for it, of course. When you work hard for something, you've got to be hard on yourself. Getting through med school wasn't easy. So that there is a certain amount of self-discipline and toughness that you need to give yourself. But I think I put too much emphasis on that. So
Yeah.
I think I was
And
quite
and
hard
it's
on
easy.
myself. And so when people were hard on
Yeah.
me, it was, well, yeah, I do this to myself. So why should anyone else be different?
Yeah, I totally understand. That makes perfect sense. Can you tell us briefly, a little bit about what you actually were diagnosed with, um, um, for people out there that might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. So, 4.5 years after I started to experience symptoms, I was diagnosed with something called temporal lobe epilepsy. And what that means is that my brain just works in a little bit of a different way sometimes, and it can make me feel unwell sometimes. But it's very different to epilepsy that people might, you know, have a picture in their mind about, if that
Yeah,
makes sense. So it can result in kind of funny sensations, a feeling of being hot or cold, but that are not provoked by external stimuli, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
So yeah, it's a funny old condition, but luckily, I'm at a place where things are going really well with it. Yes, in the past, it had led me to feel incredibly fatigued and incredibly tired, essentially, and not able to be the mum that I wanted to be.
and it's so great that you finally got the diagnosis, able to deal with it. What was the moment that you thought, "Do you know what? I'm gonna speak out." You're already there helping people as a doctor, but to speak out and go, I've gone through an experience like this, so I don't want other people to do it. I'm gonna be almost an advocate for it." What happened there for you to get to that place? Because I know you've done so much for it, and obviously you've done your TEDx as well.
Thanks, Lee. I think what made me do it, I think I was told quite a few times not to tell anybody. Um, in my professional circles, I was told, this is something that you need to keep to yourself. Um,
Yeah? Any reason why?
yeah. Again, I can't answer that question. I'm not entirely sure. But again, in my position of vulnerability,
Yeah,
I listened. And so I hid something about me that I should be incredibly proud of, but it
yeah,
became a source of shame. I realized that I wasn't being very kind to myself. I realized that I lacked self-compassion. I had compassion for other people and
yeah,
compassion for the person who was walking through my door and saying, "Doctor, I need help." Of course. But that wasn't being reflected inside, and it wasn't being offered to me by others in terms of, people outside of my close social circle. And I realized that that was completely wrong. I realized that is not how things should be. And I realized that I needed to do something about it. And that was why I chose to make a stand and do something that was different to what people had told me to do. Because at the end of the day, the only person who knows me better than myself is myself. No one knows me better than myself, is what I'm trying to say. I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I don't have anything
no,
to be quiet about. And I didn't want anyone else to go through what I'd gone through. And I'm, like I said before, I'm very, very lucky. I recognize the strength of my family support. I recognize the
yeah,
strength of the social support around me. And I recognize that other people might not be so lucky. I realize that other people might not have the blessings that I have. But regardless of that, nobody should feel what I felt. And so if I can be somebody that is offering a voice of support, then I would like to do that for someone. Being a doctor isn't just helping people in a consultation room. For me, it's about offering service to others. It's
yeah,
about helping people in their time of need. And so for me, if somebody's in a vulnerable position and they turn on this podcast and it helps them, that to me is offering service. If somebody sees my TEDx talk and it resonates with them, that to me is an offer of service. If somebody walks into my consultation room and says, XYZ, that to me is an offer of service. So if I can offer help to somebody in any way, small or large, I feel like I'm doing my job. The other thing I think that drove me to this, Lee, is that when I was going through my challenges, I didn't have any visible role models. So I couldn't find any doctors who spoke about being unwell. I
Right.
couldn't find any doctors who spoke about being unwell but carrying on with their job, carrying on with their profession, the challenges that they had faced and how they overcame them. And so I thought, well, there's a gap there. I'm sure I'm not the only doctor who's going to be unwell, and I'm sure I'm not the first, I'm sure I'm not the last. So let me try and do something about that so that the people who come behind me have somewhere to go.
And I'd certainly say for inspiration is to watch your TEDx talk because it's on YouTube, it's on your pages, and it's such a brilliant talk. It's
Thank
so
you.
good, so inspiring, and it's genuinely really, really interesting. There's so much that you're saying about what people's gone through that it's kind of like obvious, but people just ignore it. They don't pay attention to how they feel about themselves or deal with things there. And you're there going, well, you can get help. You should listen to yourself there. So it was a great one there. And I'd recommend anyone that's not seen it to watch it there as well. And how long ago did you do that? Because that sounds like it was a springboard for you to really,
Yeah,
um,
so that was just over 2 years ago now.
yeah,
So it was in late 23, and then it was published kind of towards the end of the year. So it's been just about over 2 years now. And I think that, so the first time I said out loud, I have temporal lobe epilepsy was on that stage. I hadn't said it before in a public setting. And it wasn't something that people knew about me, to be honest. And so that was really a springboard for me to develop confidence in not being ashamed and
yeah.
owning my identity and saying, this is me, take it or leave it. And I think I needed that because my voice had been dampened so much. I needed that amplification to allow me to be heard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that was a perfect place to actually speak out for the first time about it. How did you feel actually saying what you were diagnosed with on stage in front of people?
Again, just incredibly liberating. It really normalized the experience for me and it made me believe in myself and it made me think, well, actually, this is a normal experience. There's nothing to hide. And I felt incredibly proud, actually, that I was able to do that. And so I just hope from there on that the work that I do, I'm a professional speaker, I offer panel sessions, offer, keynotes, shops, and all. And so I hope that from these services that I offer in terms of services to the community, that actually it's helpful to people to recognize that it doesn't matter who silences your voice, there's always somebody there supporting you, offering you that megaphone, amplifying your sound. Even if you can't do it yourself, someone else can do it for you. And I think that's incredibly important to feeling validated.
I think so. I think definitely, if you've got somebody that is there supporting you, then you don't feel like you're on your own. You don't feel like it's just you. People trying to shut you down, whatever it might be, there as well. And the fact that you've got a great network of people around you as well, and from what you've said and done, you've gone from strength to strength with this. It doesn't look like nobody's going to be able to silence you over this at all now. There's no chance of
Oh,
that.
thanks, Lee. I just wanted to touch on one other thing that you've just
Yeah,
said, because loneliness and isolation are incredibly damaging. We
yeah,
know that, just from our very recent experiences of COVID, we know how social involvement, connection are hugely powerful to our well-being, mental health and our physical health. Being isolated is one thing, feeling like you're on your own, feeling like people don't understand your experiences, feeling like you're different to others. That isolated feeling is incredibly damaging. But equally, you can be in a room full of people but still feel lonely.
yes,
And so both of those are very different entities, but have the same negative impact on our well-being, on our memory, on our physical self, our cardiovascular health, and on every atom in our body. And so I think that's really important to understand. And I didn't recognize that before, that was also one of the reasons why I needed to get my voice out, because I didn't want to feel lonely or isolated anymore in my experience.
yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially when you feel that you're on your own. Straight away, you feel isolated, and all the other negative emotions follow it there as well. You're so busy at the moment with so many things that you're doing. What's the future looking like for you? I'd imagine there's quite a few things you've got lined up down the line.
Yes, I'm writing a book.
Tell me a little bit
I've
about
got a
that.
couple of books. Yeah, I've got a couple of books on the go. So it'll be a couple of years really before they come out, but
Yeah.
that's on the go. I'm thinking of starting my own podcast, Lee. So I'm going to need your advice and your support on that. Um, that's not going to be. These are all longer term projects, and
Yeah.
5 years down the line. And I'm really looking forward to growing my business. So yeah, I've got a wonderful number of clients, but hopefully in the next couple of years, I'll be able to grow, expand, and, really see where that takes me.
That's brilliant. We'll have your links in the episode description as well there as well. It's
Thank
been
you.
such a fantastic story of the way you've overcome it and gone on to like help other people out there and expand and really make turn adversity to strength as a podcast goes, and to really thrive from it there as well, and be a voice for people that didn't have one before. I think it's brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Amrita. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks very much for your time, and it's been amazing being in
Thank
your
you so
company.
much.